I'm so pleased to welcome today to Town Talk Cris Luttazi, who's the Executive Director of the Duxbury Beach Reservation. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you have a background with Mass Audubon and the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So you bring a lot to this position you're in. And let's talk about that.
Sure.
What is or who is the Duxbury Beach Reservation?
It's actually a great story, Julie. Back in 1919, 18 families got together and decided to purchase Duxbury Beach for $15,000, mind you.
Okay.
And they did that because there was a development plan. Over 350 homes were going to be put on Duxbury Beach. And what they wanted to do is stop the development.
Okay.
So they purchased the property.
So Duxbury Beach, that everybody thinks is owned by the town of Duxbury or the state or someone, is actually owned by a private entity, and you're a 501c3?
That is correct.
You're a nonprofit that owns Duxbury Beach.
Exactly.
I did not know that. Okay, so what now is Duxbury Beach Reservation responsible for?
So we are responsible for an area, once you drive over the Powder Point Bridge, all of the land to the north until the homes start, and all the way south to where Gurnett Guardhouse is. So it's about 4.5 miles, over 200 acres, involving several different ecosystems.
Okay.
And
Let me just interrupt. How though, is the town of Duxbury involved?
the town of Duxbury leases a portion of Duxbury Beach. And what they do is they lease the part of the beach and then they invite people to recreate on the beach. So they sell stickers.
Okay.
And then in turn, the town is responsible for the enforcement of all the rules and regs for the beach that those people may or may not do.
Okay. So, and that's their only involvement. They have no ownership at all.
That's
of this.
correct.
Okay. Now, do they provide any funding to help maintain?
What the town does is they have a lease. They pay about $850,000 for that lease each year.
Okay.
And then that money, about $500,000, goes into protecting listed species.
Okay.
They used to pay to fund the beach and help maintain its structure, but they haven't done that since 2013.
And you don't get any state funding either?
We can apply for grants, but we don't have any FEMA or MEMA emergency funding that we did in the past as well. So it's all fundraising and grants.
Okay, so your 501c3 has to actually raise, and how much does it cost? What would your budget be to actually keep up with the maintenance of the beach? And then we'll talk about what individually that means, but about what does it cost a year to maintain your beach?
Our budget is about $2 million a year. Because we're always doing a project. Either we've run into a project because there's been a lot of storms, like 2013, 18, when we had 3 nor'easters.
Yep.
Or we're doing a proactive project.
Okay. Now, can we just talk about the Piping Plovers?
Sure.
Because I know that's just an ongoing conversation of people that want to go on the beach and sometimes they can't. And what does that species have to do with the beach, and why is it so important that you have to protect them?
Well, the species is listed federally as well as state as threatened, so that means their population is low. It also means that they're not able to reproduce at a rate that would maintain their population or increase the population.
Okay.
And Massachusetts is one of the places that they nest. So they winter down in the Bahamas, and then they come up here for the summer.
Good old Duxbury Beach.
Exactly. And their population in Duxbury Beach has increased significantly. So we have about 28 pairs. That puts us at about the 5th largest population for plovers nesting in Massachusetts.
Okay, and it's very important that you keep those species alive and intact.
Well, that's what the goal of the Endangered Species Act is.
And that's state and federal?
It is for the plovers, but there's also another species called least terns. They're protected on a state level. They're considered listed to be protected.
So when you're closing the beach or whatever for them, that's something not only that you want to do because you understand the importance of them, but you're mandated to do by law.
Right. We have a permit that allows people to drive on our property. That would mean anyone who drives over the bridge, they're on our property because they're in our parking lot. It allows people to park on the roads, go to Blakeman's, the restaurant that we own, as well as drive on the beach. If we didn't protect the birds, we wouldn't have a permit that allows us to drive through basically their entire habitat.
Okay, okay. Now, your goals of your reservation are to preserve the structural integrity, protect the ecology, and provide recreational access. What I find amazing is the Duxbury Beach is really a natural jetty. I mean, it's without it. What would if that were to go away? How would that affect the rest of Duxbury?
Well, you might have heard the term barrier beach.
Yes.
A lot of people speak about barriers, but they might not think about what it is. So if you're at Snug Harbor or on Washington Street in Duxbury and you look out, you'll see Duxbury Beach, then you'll see an expanse of water, and then the coastline you're standing on. That expanse of water is called fetch. It's the area that wind and waves can travel uninterrupted. What we have right now is that whole fetch of Cape Cod Bay, all those wind and wave and all that energy hits Duxbury Beach. If the beach wasn't there, it would continue on and hit the coastline directly.
Okay.
So it stands as a natural defense.
Okay. So in order to keep that natural defense upgraded, what are the different projects that you do to maintain it?
Well, speaking in those kind of three different missions that we have, the structural integrity would be projects like Cobble Berms, beach nourishment. We just completed a large one last year, protecting the salt marsh. From an ecology point of view, we do an assessment of what vegetation is there, what's invasive, what's native, what do we need to plant. And then from an access point of view, we just received funding. We raised funds to put in mobility mats to allow people that have mobility issues to access the beach.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's wonderful. Okay, so you used to be funded somewhat by the town, somewhat by the state. Now you're strictly, you have to raise all your own funds.
We do.
If you can't find a grant.
Exactly.
Okay, so talk about that.
So for example, last year we just did a very large beach nourishment project. It was between crossovers 1 and 2 where people drive on the beach.
Yep.
And what we did is we increased the dune width. So the top of the dune used to be about 6 feet.
Okay.
And now it's 45 feet. So you
Oh.
think of it as like a trapezoid getting really wide.
Yeah.
Tall doesn't really matter. It's width when it
width.
comes to dune. When we
That's huge.
It is.
That's
it
a
is.
39-foot
It was
increase.
the largest project south of Boston, and we received the largest grant in the state of $500,000.
How did you have to do that? Did you have to bring in all that sand?
We did. It was over 1,000 truckloads of sand, and the total cost of the project was $1.4 million. So though we received the largest grant of $500,000, that left us $900,000 short, and all of that had to be fundraised.
And did you successfully fundraise?
Well, we had already, fortunately before I came, some folks were very good at fundraising,
Great.
so I was able to use our kind of emergency storm funds, but I've been dipping into that quite frequently with the storms. But that project was very important because it's the narrowest part of Duxbury Beach.
Okay. What is your strategy for moving forward for all these ongoing projects that you're going to continuously have to do every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever it is?
Well, that's a really good question. That last project that we did, it was a great project, but there was one flaw in that it took 2 years from concept and design to final construction.
That was to increase the
width
of it.
Right, just in that small little section.
And do you have to do that in other sections too?
We do. We have lots of different ways that you want to, you don't really work against Mother Nature, kind of figure out what
she's
coastal
gonna do.
resiliency is.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
There's a little bit of modeling involved, a lot of modeling. But what we have done is instead of saying we want to do this project and 2 years later we'll do another project, what we're doing is we're submitting for 10 projects for the entire beach at the same time. So we're saying we have 4.5 miles. There's lots of different projects. We'll submit it all and start the process. And this is kind of my joke in that way we'll be a little bit flexible in our management of a barrier beach.
Right, because 2 years to do that one project, and you're seeing all these other projects that you have in your head. So you're saying you want them approved? And who approves them?
There are a host of folks. There are federal agencies, state agencies, town conservation commission. What we're doing is we're filing with MEPA, which is Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency, and we're filing for this 10-project, 10-year permit.
Okay.
And that is kind of the big permit where all the other agencies are at least involved, but they're not signing off. But at least Army Corps of Engineers will know that we're thinking about this.
Okay.
And it will start the process. Some of these projects take six permits. Some of them take 3 permits. It all depends on what the type of project is.
So this is like a decade-long blueprint for Duxbury Beach.
It is.
And for everything that has to do with anything you might have to do to sustain it.
That we can foresee, think about, or
right.
see that's happening right now. So
You don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a good use of resources for funding as well as people.
Okay. Now, talk about some of the things in that 10-year project that you're going to do besides increase the size of the width.
So Cobble Berms, for example,
What are
on the
Cobble
Cobble Berms. It's a
Berms.
really fancy way of saying rounded rocks.
Rounded rocks. Okay.
And they're in some parts on the bay side. The channel cuts in on the bay side.
Yep.
So if you put sand there, it would just continuously
Leave,
erode.
yeah.
So what you do is you find the perfect size cobble. There's a lot of work that you wouldn't think of, but you wouldn't want to put angular rocks
Okay.
because the water will wash up, it'll catch an angle of the rock, and then it will just take it into the bay.
Okay.
If you have rounded cobble, if you will, and the
Yep.
right size, they'll roll up with the water, they'll roll back down with the water, and they'll stay in place. So there's Cobble Berms, there's beach nourishment, salt marsh work.
Talk about beach nourishment. Is that when you plant grasses, or I mean, what do you do?
That's the end part, and that's why grass is king in our world. The only thing that holds the sand in place is the rhizomes or roots
Yep.
that the grass
Right.
shoots out.
Okay.
So when we say beach nourishment, it's adding some sort of sand to an existing dune.
Okay. Other things. So you have I never knew that rounded rocks. Like, who knew? Right? It's like the
Science.
Yeah, the science of it, and the grasses. And then let's talk about if you have a major storm, something that just takes out half the beach.
Sure.
What is your plan for that?
Well, we had something like that back in March of 2018. 3 nor'easters
Yes.
hit. And we had waves rolling over, not just washing, but you could
Yes,
see the
yep,
wave
yep.
literally going over.
Eating
Rolling right over to the bayside. And the road got washed out. Part of a dune got washed out. A lot of folks, all the towns in Cape Cod received FEMA funding for that because there's declared an emergency.
Yep.
We went into our coffers and spent $685,000 just in that area to put the dune back to where it was. And to fix the road so people could
So this was
continue
just to
travel.
get it back to where it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, this isn't
And
protecting
that-
it going forward.
And that's the example of the permit.
Yeah.
In an emergency situation, you're allowed to put it back to where it was, but you can't build it any better than it was because you'd have to go through the whole permit process.
So to get it, which makes sense why you want to do it all at once.
Exactly.
Now, what are you doing for fundraising? How can people get involved and help?
Well, we have quite a few events, and we have lots of opportunities for volunteering.
Okay.
First, I'd say what's coming up is March 21st. We have a beach sweep.
Okay.
We usually have 100+ folks that come. People come with their kids and say they did it as kids, but
Yeah.
just come and spend an hour picking up trash and,
Okay.
and getting the beach ready for the season.
Okay.
And
so
then
it's a Saturday in March. Yep.
Yeah, and then April 16th,
Yeah.
we have a Get to Know Duxbury Beach that we'll be hosting, and you can look at our website and get more information about that. But for folks that have questions that don't really understand or always wondered why something worked the way that it did, they'll be
Yeah.
able to come and ask us directly.
And it's so important. I mean, educating yourself on this is so important. Like the fact that I bet half the people don't know that the beach isn't owned by the town. I mean, that's just like, who knew? Well, we always assumed it was owned by the town of Duxbury. How many people are in your organization
So we have 3 full-time folks.
that are
and
responsible for all that?
It is, well, up until 2017, it was all volunteers until I started.
Wow.
So we have 3 full-time people, 1 part-time person,
Mm-hmm.
and we're about to be hiring for all of the beach monitors that are required by law.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the town used to do that, but they said to us last month that they really couldn't manage that. So we're about to hire 50+ part-time people.
So you are a 501c3, which means you are a nonprofit. So
Mm-hmm.
if people donate to you, it's a tax-deductible donation.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful. And what is the website?
It's DuxburyBeachReservation.org.
Okay, Cris, this has been amazing. A lot of information. And I hope everybody goes and visits the website and educate yourself about the wonders of the Duxbury Beach and the Duxbury Beach Reservation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.